Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Demystifying Post-Production Motion Monday. My name's Ellie and I'm once again joined by Maxon Master Trainers Lionel and Dustin. How's it going, guys? How are we doing?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Happy Monday, we're here again.
Daylight savings is amazing.
Yes, so it's an hour earlier for me and Lionel, which is a little bit strange, but you know, we're here and we love it. So let me get into a couple of things before we actually get into this session. Here is our Maxon events page. So you guys may be aware that we run so many sessions throughout the week and throughout the month. And if you ever want to check out what's coming up, all you have to do is head over to the maxon.net events page, and then you can see all of the wonderful things as a team that we're doing. So we have our Demystifying Post-Production, where throughout the whole of March, every Monday in March, we're diving into some different Redshift topics. And so if you want to register for those or check out what's happening on the next ones, then you can do that on there. And then last week, we started a brand new Hands-On with Maxon Intro to Rigging workshop. And that was with Joe. And this week we're looking at point weighting inside of Cinema 4D. So if you're interested in learning all about rigging, we've only done the first part. And so you can catch that up on the YouTube channel, which I'll show you in a sec. And then check out episode 2 that's coming this week. And on Thursday, if you're interested in learning about color grading, Max has a relatively new show, Max on Color, where he dives into all things to do with color grading and color correction. And on Thursday, he's doing his own kind of color bootcamp. So if you're interested in that, then definitely check that out. And then finally, on Fridays, we have our VFX talk show with Seth and Hashi. And so that can be seen on here. And if you ever miss any of our sessions, so if you can't catch these up live, or if you have to kind of like shoot off, then they're actually pretty much most of them are recorded and I put on our Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. So all you have to do, head over to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel here and you can see things like our upcoming live streams. So Max's Color Bootcamp, we can see on here, as well as next week's Ask the Trainer, and you can set reminders for those as well. And then if we scroll down, we actually have a playlist for each of our kind of different series. So we have a playlist of Demystifying Post-Production, then we have Ask the Trainer, we have Hands-On with Maxon. So don't worry, if you ever miss a session, then you can always check out our YouTube channel and catch up on those. So back to sort of this week and what we're going to be doing today, we do actually have some exercise files that Lionel's been putting together. And so if you missed last week's session, then first of all, you can check it out on our YouTube channel, and you can also come into the project files and then you can check out the exercise files for that particular session. And then what we'll do is the project files for today, we will put on there either later today or tomorrow for you guys to kind of break down as well if you want to. And all those links you should find in the handout section of GoToWebinar. If you can't see that section or you can't see those links, just let us know in the questions area and then we can link them to you. Also, in case you guys don't know, we do love to say thank you for being part of our lovely community by giving away these free kind of Maxon merch t-shirts that me and Dustin are wearing right now. And so all you got to do, head over to that special link inside the handout section and then type in the secret password, which is Redshift phrasing, and then you can grab yourself a t-shirt. All you got to do is pay for shipping. And then on that same handout section, you can find those same links that I literally just showed you for the events, for the session recordings, and for the shared project files. So just a little shout out to everyone that's in the questions area. Hey to Bernd, hey to Hannah, Enno, Christian, Ahmed, Jan, Anna's. It's really nice to see you guys. Thanks for being here with us and, you know, asking me questions about these live shows. So Lionel, what is it we're going to be diving into today? Got a little preview for everyone.
So yes, today we're going to render volumes inside Cinema 4D with Redshift. So volumes like water, like fire, smoke, clouds, it's all the same already. And yeah, that's it.
Cool. So shall I pass it over to you? Are you ready to go?
Yes, let's go.
Cool, let's do it. There you go.
All right. Is it working?
Yep, we can see a screen.
Okay, then yeah, we're going to see all that stuff, and yes, we're going to use xparticles later on the session today. But first, we're going to start with brand vanilla Cinema 4D. So here, for example, I have
Lionel, sorry to interrupt you 1 sec. Could you turn your mic up just a little bit? A couple of people have asked
yes,
a little bit quiet. Cool, thank you.
All right, it's done. Is it not too loud? It's okay now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
All right, let's go. I'm going to turn off the camera as well. Okay, so yeah, a few of the render we're going to do today. This is the curva picture. So this is volumes with xparticles, and what's interesting here, we have color blending together. We'll see also how to add motion blur to volumes. This is a question I'm often asked, how to use motion blur with OpenVDB. Because it doesn't work. Actually, it does, but you have to know the trick. And also, and we'll start with that, we're going to see, okay, those are, if I have the time, I doubt I will do have the time. And here we're going to see how to render clouds. So this is something I did earlier on, I think 2 years ago on another webinar, but I pushed further the technique. And what's interesting here, it's all Cinema 4D. It's only the OpenVDB, the volume builder, and nothing else with noise and so on. And this is rendered through Redshift, of course. And this is very interesting because you can create that kind of setup very easily. You see, this is a L with clouds. It's super easy to do. And then we will jump in to do some volumes. And actually, this simulation is the very same we can see here with those fire trails. And this is another one I just did this afternoon with motion blur applied and some stuff inside. We'll see all that. All right, so let's start. We'll start with the cloud stuff. So this is one of my files, and I'm going to build that from scratch. So the idea here is to use the volume builder, Cinema's 4D volume builder. So for this, we need an object. So we're going to use to create just a sphere. The sphere, the default sphere I don't like because we have here a pole. This is very good if you want to do a sphere and nothing else, but if you want to deform this, you better change it to icosahedron. So this one, which has only triangle evenly spread out. I'm going to add a few segments and we're going to stretch this. So I'm going to do the base of my cloud. So now I'm going to add to this our displacer. So I'm working on the base object before putting it inside the volume builder. So our displacer, again, in the shader to use a noise. And we're going to increase the height of the noise, okay? And already we do have some kind of cloud shape. Very simple, of course, but still it's there. Let's go to NA, and I'm going to add more segments like that. So here, if I do that, I need to go, because I added some more segments in the displacer, we'll go to the noise and increase also the scale of the noise. All right. And we have some kind of generic cloud shape. What's nice here, you just change the seed to have a different noise. I like this one, for example, and you can try some other noise later on with that. Okay, so now we have this base mesh. I'm going to put it inside our OpenVDB builder. Okay, and now the trick is not to use the sign distance field. We do not want to mesh it. We want to use the fog settings. And the fog settings is going to give us small dots, which are the voxels. So I'm going to decrease the size of the voxels to 4 centimeters. We have something much denser. And that's about it if you want to render some volume with that. So I'm going to use Redshift. Let's create a volume material. So this one, volume material, I'm going to add it to the volume builder. And here we're going to use in the scatter channel, you can see volume builder. So you use this one. Okay, and that's all it takes to shade this. So of course now I need to add some light. So because I want to do some clouds, I can use the sun and sky rig. Okay, so we have our sky and a sunlight, which is here. And one, it's an interesting trick about the sunlight, like infinite light and so on. You can move it anywhere you want. It's not going to do any difference. The only important thing here is the orientation. So if you're going to move this, it's going to work. It's going to have an effect. And you look actually at the Z arrow showing where the sun is going to shine. Okay, so now I have that. I can just go to the Redshift render view and fire the render. And it's going to look like this. So it's it's just very ugly because we just started, but you can see the idea. Those are the voxels, and we can very easily see them because they are all small cubes, small box. Okay, so the first thing to do is to get an option here in our volume builder. We have our sphere, and we have here inside voxel fall off. If you just change this one, you can see we're going to smooth out our cloud. And if I go further, okay, and actually you don't really need to use this. This is the one if you want to fine tune it, but most of the time you're just going to use the maximum voxel fall off, and it's going to do the trick, meaning that it's going to create some kind of gradient here from the center of the voxel inside our cloud to the outskirt here. You can see here without. Okay, and if I go back to 1, they're all at 100%, and here they're all on gradient. Okay, so already it's looking more like a cloud. Now you have some settings to tweak with here. You have the scatter coefficient. Scatter coefficient is going to tell how the light is going to scatter inside the volume, is going to penetrate. It's almost like the diffuse. So if I'm going to increase this, you can see there is more light going inside. Even here in the cloud, the shadow part, there is more light. The other one is the absorption here. And if you decrease the absorption, it's going to let more light go through because it's thinner. Actually, you can think of that as the opacity. This is the diffuse, this is the opacity of transparency. So if I decrease it, and of course, because I decrease the opacity, then I have more light coming through. So usually you're going to tweak those two values to get the effect you want. And if I go rather small like that, I'm going to have a cloud, very perfect cloud like this. That could already do the trick, but it's not very interesting. It's not very interesting because unless you want to do some cartoon cloud, it's not realistic. You need to have more details on the border, the outskirt of our cloud. So there are many ways to do that. I'm going to stop here. The easiest way is just to use here our random field. So if I use a random field, and then I'm going to put the random field inside the volume builder, it's going to be here on the center. Okay, because here our random field is going to use the creation space box, meaning that it's going to be just a box inside the cloud. I don't want that. I want to use the object below. So it's going to map the whole cloud. Okay, so now I have done that. We can take a look here at the render. It's still not very interesting because our random field is just on top of the sphere. It just replaced the voxel. I'm going to multiply the result. You have many operations here, and there's actually already only one or two which are interesting. The mean is interesting, subtract, but I'm going to use multiply. Multiply because we're going to keep the shape, the blurry border, and then we're going to add some noise. So here we have something already more interesting. Now it depends on the random field. Random field is going to use a noise. So there are many noise you can use. There is the Perlin by default. If I increase the scale, you see it's going to give us already more details. It's more interesting than before. And if you change your noise type, you can have already some very interesting results. So for example, if I switch looker, we can see we have more details here. At some point, you're going to get stuck because of the size of your voxel field. So here, our volume builder is using a voxel size of 4 centimeters, meaning that each of the tiny voxels are actually 4 centimeters wide. With fog, you can go much lower than that. For example, if I go to 2 centimeters, we have more details. But because everything is blurry, you won't maybe notice the difference. I can see it on my screen. I don't know if that's the case with you because of the streaming compression, but we have details we didn't have before. I can go even as low as 1 centimeter. It's going to be even more detailed like that. Okay, so here I can try some other noise. I can try with the scale also. I can use with the noise type here. Let's use, for example, one which is very nice, which is the nucleus. And the nucleus is a high contrasty noise that works very well with clouds. We could even already say that we have our shape. If I increase the scale, we get this. And if you don't like the distribution of the noise, you can just change here the seed, for example, until you get something that you like. Okay, the overall shape of the cloud is defined, of course, by the sphere, but then the details inside depend on that noise. You can, of course, try all the noise here. They're all interesting, give some good effect. I especially like this one, the nucleus, which is really nice. Okay, from there, you already have a cloud. You can work with it. It's really nice. It's going to work very well with the light. For example, if I take my light here, let's move it this way. And if I move it like that, we can see our cloud is going to react like a cloud. It's darker here at the base because the sun is shining down. And if I try to have something more like setting sun like this, we get this very nice detail. Here I can just, to have our sun look better, I can use a few stuff, like for example, the bloom, which is going to give us a bloom, a halo, the flare, and the streak here. Also, I can just use here on my Redshift scanning sun, you have some option for the sun and increase the sun disk scale. If I go to 2, we have a bigger sun disk. It looks nicer. I could on the sky here just change a bit the red blue shift to exaggerate. You see the the setting sun effect. From there, I can again go this way. I could even orient it inside the sun. It's going to shine through, you see, depending on the thickness of the cloud. And that's pretty fast to render. If I just go to the bucket mode with the default settings, you can see it's pretty fast. It won't be absolutely realistic, but it works pretty well. It works pretty well because, well, it's nice to use. You can have a lot of variation with that. That's already pretty nice. So this I have showed already on a previous webinar. Where we're going to go further is if you're going to use some other operator we have here. So it gets a bit complicated here because this is all math. If you think of each voxel having a value between 0 and 1, you know what to do with all those, okay? The option we have used here, the maximum voxel falloff, mean that inside the heart of the cloud, we have some voxel with 1, value of 1, and the voxel at the border here have a value of almost 0. And then all the other in between are going to ramp between 0 and 1. Okay, knowing that, we can use some operator here, which are going to give us even more control. So I'm going to get back with the render view and have a live render, progressive render. Okay, and actually I think I'm going to raise the sun, so yeah, we will see better the cloud. Okay, so now with my volume builder here, if I add some other stuff, so the fog smooth is going to smooth the fog. It's going to be more obvious if I increase a lot the voxel distance and the iteration, and you can see our cloud is getting blurry. So that's too much, but you get the idea. That's one way to control the look. You see here I have the nice feature of our noise, but it's not as sharp as before. I'm going to disable it. Another one which is very nice to use is all those, the fog multiply and the fog add. I'm going to use with the multiply. So multiply is going to multiply everything by 1, meaning that nothing happened. But if I multiply with another value, let's 0.5, I'm actually going to decrease the overall density of everything. And we get this nice result, as you can see. So we could even try to have some fog if I go to 0.1. You see, very tiny, almost looks like wisp. Difficult to see on the screen here, on the sky background, but it's there. You can go the opposite way, going 1.5. So now it's denser, okay? And because it's multiplying, the center of the cloud is going to get thicker, but the outside is going to, well, it's still working because on the outside, the value are like 0.1. So 0.1 multiplied by 1.5 is still not a lot. It's 0.15, so it's not a lot. It works very nice, very well. You can increase here and have some nice results. Just going to densify all this. Also, one interesting trick I have already tried, if you just keyframe this and you go from multiply 2 to 0, you're going to make your cloud disappear like it was vanishing, like cloud actually do. Okay, let's go back to 0.5, for example. And we can use another one, which is the fog add. Fog add is even simpler because it's going to add this value. So 1 is much too strong because you shouldn't go, you shouldn't have a value higher than 1. So 1 is just too much here. But if you just decrease the opacity, the overall value 0.5, if I use the fog add and then I'm going to use 0.5, let's add it. well, it's stronger than that. Let's decrease 0.5. Yes, it's 0.005. And you can have this interesting result also. You can also invert the operators. So if I put my fog add before the multiplier, it's going to add thickness, and then the overall is going to be multiply. You have some interesting result also. And at the end, you can add your fog smooth to decrease the to blur the border of everything. And because all of this can be just ticked in, ticked out, you can have a lot of variation with just one object. From there, it's pretty easy to just add a shape. For example, I could add another sphere. I'm going to multiply this one actually. So I'm going to add this sphere, only the sphere. And I'm going to move the new sphere here. And well, I'm going to leave it as it is. Just be careful here, our sphere should be at the bottom before even the random field, okay? And then the sphere here, normal, is going to, we're going to use max, meaning that it's going to not add the value, but just add it, but without going higher than 1. Okay, so now I have a bigger cloud. Oh yes, and I forgot something very important, maximum voxel fall-off. And see, I've just increased the range of my my cloud. Now I could just, I'm going to uncheck all this. Let's go here, uncheck the materials and go to quick shading. I want to see better my cloud. I could go this way, maybe decrease the size. Let's go back to something like that. I'm aiming a more, it's a cumulonimbus. It's the cloud, the anvil shaped cloud. So maybe by doing something like that, and then the displacer here, I'm going to decrease the size of the displacer so it has something like that. Okay, let's activate back the volume builder. And we get this. So it's very easy to have variation. I mean, you could put any object you want. We could use type, for example. I'm not going to do it because I'll be short on time, but any polygonal object can work. And that means you have a lot of opportunity to create all kind of clouds, very fast to render, very easy to create. And as you can see, no texture, it's just operator noise on top of each other. Okay, so next I'm going to show you how to iterate even more of that using cloner and so on, but maybe we have time for a question, if there are questions.
Yeah, there are. This is awesome, by the way. People are really loving it. So we had a couple of questions. Oliver was wondering, how would you go about animating these clouds, if possible?
It's very easy, very easy. There are many ways to animate it. First, you could just animate the shape here in the displacer. So if I go here in the displacer and you go to the noise and you have just this option. So it's here, it's the speed. You just get some speed here and it's going to animate over time. No, yeah, I forgot. It's this one, animation speed. So let's go to 1. You can see. So we could, this is one way. This is going to animate the shape of the cloud. And if you want to animate the details inside, it's going to be the random field. And you have the same option here, animation speed. So if I put a speed of 3%, it's going to change over time. If I just hit the render button, of course, I need to activate back the volume builder. If I go another, yeah, you can see it's changed. We could of course just move the cloud this way. We could animate the sphere itself separately. And like I said earlier, if you want to make the cloud disappear because it's a very hot day, for example, you could just here on the multiply, animate this value. So for example, if you go to 0.5, maybe I can even do it live. If I change it here, it's going to disappear. And at some point, it's going to, well, there is nothing anymore because it's multiplied by 0. So yeah, there are many ways to animate it. It's so much easier than with particles, which is the other way to create a cloud, but it's much more complex.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, there we have another quick question from Max, who was wondering where would you go to make the clouds white, or if you wanted to kind of change the color of the clouds, how would you go about that?
It's with the material. You have a lot of creative freedom with this. So here it's interesting also actually because here it's rendering. And if you want to make it more white, well, you're just going to increase the scatter coefficient. So if I increase here, of course, at some point, it's going to be so white that you lose all the details. But it's one way to do it. If you want to tint it, you have actually here a tint. So if you want to make it slightly bluish, yeah, see, it works. It's slightly blue, whereas it was just white before. And also, what's interesting here, if you just work with the scatter remap ramp. So actually, if you go this way, see, so this one is more useful when you use when you render fire or smoke, but it works also with the cloud. As you can see, it's actually the ramp. Yeah, that was a mistake. Another one. Yeah, this one should be pure black. Otherwise, it just do funny stuff. And you can go this way also, which is going to kind of make it more white. You see, there is less gradient. And if you go this way, you're going to cut through the cloud. Again, this is very interesting with smoke, but you can use it with cloud. It's going to give you sharper edges like that.
Cool, thanks.
Any more question? So
no, those are the main ones. So you'd already answered one when you showed the fog multiplier. So Greg was asking about how would you create wispy looking clouds, but you read his mind and showed it.
Yeah, the way would be to use this one and some noise, some very defined noise like the nucleus and the Luca. The Luca works very well. At some point, if you really want to have some wisp, meaning that the cloud are going to curl onto themselves, it's not really possible. That's where you're going to use particles, which is way more complex. Way longer, way more less predictable, and so on. I like this way because it's so easy and so fast. But there is some limits.
Great.
Okay, so I have seen in one of the question that it's very heavy for the graphic card and the computer. Well, not really. I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to create some quick variation of this. So we have our volume builder, and I'm going to first to export the result. So I'm going to render it to the disk. So I'm taking the volume builder. I'm going to the file, export to volume VDB here. Okay, so I'm going to export only this frame, selected only. And here, so I have already some, so I'm going to create a new, that will be cloud 4. It's exporting. Should be pretty fast. And then I could just disable this one, go back to this cloud. I'm going to the displacer, and maybe let's try another seed. Okay, and maybe I'm going in the random field to use another field also, another seed, and that's another cloud. So I'm going to export it again. That would be cloud 5. I'm going to stop there because you get the drill. And then I'm going to create a new scene. I'm going to get the same Redshift Sun and Sky rig, okay? And now I'm going to use in the object, not to be confused with the materials, okay? In materials, you have the volume, and in the object, you have the Redshift volume, okay? They are not the same. The Redshift volume is going to allow you to load a VDB file. And you can find on the net some collection of VDB file, very expensive one. You can really create your own pretty easily. To be fair, some of the collection I have found on internet are very nice, but some are not so nice. It's pretty easy to spot which one are the best. Usually on the website, you just demo a few files you can just download. That's a good way to check if they are good quality or not. But here I'm creating my own cloud. So I'm going to use here and load the cloud 4, which is the one I created. So you can see it's 50 megabytes. The other one I have created just use a lower voxel file. It would be interesting to load instead. So I'm going to take this one. Okay, and now I have this cloud. So what's already great is you can just keep it like this as a preview box. Okay, so it's super fast on the viewport. Now I'm going to create a Redshift volume material. Okay, I'm going to put it there. It's going to work exactly the same as before. And here I'm going to use Redshift volume builder. You see, it just remembered the volume builder. And that's it. Now I can just render this. It's going to be super fast because it's already in a format that it can understand. This is the same cloud. I just need now to decrease the absorption coefficient, and we have our cloud. And here I can already create some variation again by using those tricks I have showed you, like this one, for example, or make it brighter and so on. So that's already nice. What's even nicer is that actually it's very easy to clone this. I wouldn't recommend to clone the volume builder, but this one you can do, you can just get crazy. It works very well. So I'm going to put it inside a cloner. And this is the basic, let's just spread out just a little bit. Okay, like that. And now if I just use our render view again, see how fast it's going to render, okay? And we have a lot of VDB because they are already in cached, because they are already translated to language that Redshift understand. Actually, you can have a lot of clouds like that. What's even more interesting is now we can just load other Redshift volume. So I'm going to clone this and use my other cloud, cloud 5, and I can just use some field effector. So for example, of course, the random effector. So random effector is going to randomize the position, okay, and the rotation. Let's go 360, and why not the scale? And because those are cloud, you can have arbitrary scale like that. It's going to work very well. We don't mind that the cloud are not how do you say the same size. And that's it. And actually, this is a way to create more clouds. This would be very difficult to do with only the volume builder. When you have some great details, it's very fast to render. As you can see here on the render view, it's quite fast, and it looks like some already known cloud. Of course, the limitation with this is you can't alter your noise inside your clouds anymore. But I mean, it's not that a big deal. You just go back to the other file, tweak your base cloud, and then render it again. It's even nicer because it's a cloner. So it's some Cinema 4D clone, so you can do whatever you want with it. And for example, yeah, here it is. What I created here is just this spline. Okay, it's a L. Just a spline, and then the cloner is using the spline as an object to instance the cloud along the spline. So if I activate that, you can see those are all boxes on top of each other. I just change here the step, and it's very easy to change. If you want to have less cloud, you do that, more cloud, you do that, and that's it. And then I'm using the random effector again to slightly offset the cloud, to rotate them, to scale them, and so on. And now if I just render this, it works. It's very fast. Yeah, I forgot to, here it is. And now you can just play here with the volume builder, maybe make it like that, and maybe I'll just cut through like this, make it denser. So there is a whole lot of things I can play with this. Here I'm going back to my Redshift volume, and in the coordinate I'm going to increase the size. Let's put 3 everywhere. And it looks like I created a very complex cloud just by using some basic cloud. Let's go back to here. I'm going to decrease the scatter coefficient like that, so it's going to be denser. And I have made some tests. So yeah, at some point it's going to be very heavy, of course, but I have tried with smaller cloud. I think it was a 4 centimeter voxel cloud, so 1 megabyte per cloud. I was able to create a sea of cloud pretty easily, and the render time were okay. So yeah, that's it for our cloud. Do you have some question maybe?
Yes, we've had a bunch of questions in actually. Let me just go through them. So Benjamin was wondering, which AOV would you use for the volume fog cloud?
Which VDB?
Is there a particular AOV?
Oh yeah, for for compositing.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, it's in the AOV manager. You have to use the volume. It's a bit tricky because it's I think it's the volume lighting. I think you have this one to use too. Volume fog emission. Actually, there's a trick. I don't remember quite well, but if you look at the documentation, you can find the formula. It's volume lighting, and I think it's the volume fog tint, something like that. And those two should be multiplied. That allow you to render the cloud independently of anything else.
Cool. I'll try and find that in the documentation as well and ping the link in. Sharon was wondering, can we put a light through them? So could you set up some volumetric lighting to get like God rays, and would they interact with these cloud VDBs?
Yeah, it works very well. Actually, I was preparing some file about this to create some spotlight effect, like you can have a dense club. It's more difficult to do, and but it works very well. So here I could just turn off all the light. Maybe I can show it very quickly on this one. It was, yeah, this one. This is my base cloud. If I just deactivate those two and create a spotlight, and we're going to orient the spotlight to us. And let's fire up the render. You can see it's just showing through and just lighting that part of the cloud. And it's a very interesting way to create some cloud effect, to create some mood for lighting. And you can very well use the Redshift environment on top of that. And now we're going to get I'm going to disable this. Okay, so you can see we have the volumetric lighting. Let's just decrease the scattering. You see, so this is the cloud and this is the volumetric lighting, and it's filtered through the cloud.
Cool.
So you just had to play with that, and I did some tests. If you create a cone which is the exact same size of the spot, you can have some very nice results like this with true 3D volumetric lighting.
Cool, thanks. So got a question from our good friend Chad, our fellow trainer. He's wondering, is the animated noise stored in the VDB and picked up by the RS volume?
Well, it will if when you export your noise, you just where is it? You just need here to export volume, and then you're going to check the animation. The drawback is it's going, of course, to create one VDB for each frame, so it's going to be very heavy. And also, when you render back, it's not going to take longer to render, but it's going to eat up your disk space because VDB file can be huge. But yeah, that's the way. It's pretty easy. Just had to check that.
Nice. We've got a couple more. John was wondering, how would this kind of workflow work for physics simulation, like collisions on these clouds?
Yeah, it's a good question. It won't. It won't. You need to use particles for that again. I'm sure there's some way to fake it, but it won't be as accurate as with particles, because if you have something, if you have real smoke and you cut something through, you're going to get two boxes of smoke. I don't see how to do it with that. There must be a way, but yeah, if you really want to have accurate physics simulation, that would be with particles.
Cool. Would that be the same case? Simon was sort of asking a similar question, working with the volume mesher and dynamics, imagining a soft body applied to the original sphere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Using soft body, there must be some way to fake it. I mean, you can always fake it. that's the cool stuff. I would use, yes, soft body or rigid, but something like that. That could work, maybe.
Definitely something for us to try, maybe. So one more quick one. It's slightly off topic. How would you, or would there be a way of creating a similar type of effect using C4D's standard renderer? Do you know?
Well, I don't think it's possible. It still exists. We have the Pyro cluster. Yes, but I have never much tried this, and I don't know if it's compatible with. I don't think it is. I don't think it's working with the volume builder. Actually, I don't know. Do you know, guys?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I've used it in the past, but not with a volume builder.
You can
No,
create.
same. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I've only used it maybe once before. But yeah,
same.
definitely not in this type of in this type
Everyone
Yeah,
of
has to use it
scenario.
once.
yeah, me too. Like 10 years ago. So there is a way to do clouds with this, but it was much more difficult than with this trick, and the rendering time was just insane. Huh? I mean,
Yeah.
here we have clouds in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, we're getting the same kind of comments saying even if it works, it's pretty slow. Cool. Yeah, those were most of the questions for now. There's a couple more, but I'll let you carry on and I'll save those to the end.
All right, so yeah, it's it's going to be difficult to show. So actually, maybe yeah, I'm going to show you the volume stuff. So I won't have time for fire. I can't do all unless it's going to take 2 hours. Maybe it could be another webinar. I'm going to show you volumes with to create water and stuff like that. So let's take a look at my water tendril. Okay, so we have a simulation here. So this is with particles. We have a simulation where we have 2 spirals that are going to meld together and create something like that. So yeah, here it breaks because I didn't cache that long, and the trick here is how to have the color to fuse together, and also how to use motion blur with it. And also I'll show you how to create that quickly with xparticles. It's quite easy. So let's go. I'm going to take a shortcut and maybe just take my 2 splines because they're already there. That's some, it's already done. So this is my Helix, and let's just copy paste here. So those are my 2 Helix. Okay, very easy. It's a Helix object. I just fuse them together. That's it. Okay, so now I'm going with INSYDIUM, create xparticles, xp system, and I'm going with my emitter to turn it to a circle, and I'm going to put it in front of one of the base of the spiral. Also, I'm going to decrease a bit the size. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate this one to get it there. Okay, those 2 emitters. In the display tab, I'm going to change the color to use the gradient gradient parameter. So it's going to shade my particles depending here on this color. I'm going to use the speed parameter, and from 0 to 100, yeah, that should be it. Okay, so this one and this one is going to be also a gradient parameter based on the speed. And here we're going to change the color. I'm just going to take the same gradient, but maybe use red. So I'm changing here the hue. Okay. Now, yeah, I want to have a water motion, water behavior to this. So I'm going to add on the dynamic tab another modifier, which is the xpFlowField. So there are a lot of modifiers. That's the problem with xparticles. So just overwhelmed by all the options. And we have several for the fluid. And for the one I want to use, the fluid PBD is very nice to create tendril, meaning that it's going to, well, you'll see, it's going to create tendril of water. It's very nice. So let's use fluid PBD. Again, on the 2 emitter, I need to do a few tweaks. On the emission here, I want to have something not that fast, so 70 centimeter. And I want to decrease the radius to 2 centimeter. Those are standard settings I use very often. So in the last setting here, the emission rate, actually, if you're going to use fluid effect, you're going to use the hexagonal emitter, meaning that the particles are not going to overlap on each other. Using water simulation, two particles cannot exist at the same place at the same time. With hexagonal, you know that your particles are not going to be on top of each other. So now if I just hit play, we get this. Okay, so that's cool. That's a bit weird, but already you can see the tendril I was talking you about. You see? That's because of our fluid PVD. But of course, the particles are just doing what they want. They're ignoring here our spiral. So I'm going to use the most powerful effector inside xParticles on the Dynamics tab, which is the flow field. The flow field is a modifier that can replace every single one of the modifier I have here. Okay, it can do it can direct randomly particles, it can make them follow a surface, it can make follow a spline, whatever you want, it's possible. So the flow field is actually a box, a domain. I'm going to get at this right size, and everything is going to happen inside this volume. Let's make it a bit longer like that. Okay. And we can see here a preview of the motion. So actually my flow field, I don't want to use here the random field is going to affect randomly the particle. We can see already how it looks. You'll see it's interesting. Huh? Could already get something with that. See? That's pretty cool. But I don't want that. I want them to follow the spline. So let's go back. Let's delete this. I'm going to add the along spline. So it's going to follow along the spline. And our spline here is going to be, of course, the helix. Okay, so it's going to change the interface. So here to see what's going on, I'm going to the display. And instead of the trail for this one, I like to use arrow. And I want to use the voxels. And also, I'm not going to show, I'm going to untick this. So now I can see, you see here the vector showing that it's going to follow those splines. Let's go back to the object. And here my helix, I want to use the distance a bit longer than that, like 100 centimeter. You can see it's going to follow more. And also I'm going to use a little trick here. This is the spline, the fall off of the spline. And you can see our arrow are getting smaller and smaller, and then there is no force being applied. So I want to just raise that a little bit, meaning that it's going to continue the motion even outside of all this. Okay, one last thing to do here is the strength. So it's going to direct the particles with the strength of 10%. So no, I want much more than that, like 80%. And it's going to work here on the direction. Okay, perfect. That's where I want. I don't want to alter the speed, the velocity. Okay, now if I just hit play, we should see our particle working, and it's going to create our motion. I can see it's following the thing. And also you can see the head of the particles. It's like, well, you have all seen, I think, Abyss, the Abyss from James Cameron in the 80s, where you had this water tendril, which was, I think, the very first CG creature, much before the dinosaur of Jurassic Park. And well, it had this, the head was thinner. This is how water tendril would actually behave. So let's put 300 frames. Let's go Also, I'm going to change the speed, the gradient of the stuff. And you can see it's following the motion. At some point, it's going to get closer here, and you can see some nice here along the time. We can see some details that are going to appear. Okay, so at some point, they're going to join like that, and I would like also to randomize them a little bit. So let's go back. I'm going to do a few more changes on the 2 emitter here on the display. Actually, I was wrong here with the speed. I think we can, this is going to map the color, the gradient of the color. So let's do something like that, 80 to 200 centimeter. You just have to tweak, to play with it to find the right value. And also, I want at the end the particle to break a little bit. So here on the flow field, I can add a little bit of another one, which is the curl. So curl is going to add some more randomness to the whole thing. So curl is much too strong here. I'm going to decrease here the strength. You can see here it's going to, how it's going to alter the motion of the whole thing. And because we don't see anything anymore, I'm going to change back to just one plane like that. Okay, so let's go back to our curl, and we have our strength. And I don't want to normal, it's going to replace the motion of the 2 spiral. So I just want to use, for example, the add. So it's going to keep the motion and add some more randomness on it. So let's try. Yeah, you can see the color are much better. We already have some variation we didn't have before, thanks to the curl. So we're getting there. I'll be able to show you now the trick for the actual webinar. I'm just going to let it run a little bit more. So that's what's cool with simulation and particles. You'll never have the same result as before. Even if you follow the exact same settings, it's always a bit different. And I quite like this one actually. It's more spread out than the my first test. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. So we have this motion, which is very interesting. And now we're going to mesh it. So I'm going to go to the generators. I'm going to use the OpenVDBMesher. The OpenVDBMesher, which is the same thing as the volume builder, but it's the one INSYDIUM planted inside xParticles. So you have to use this one. And I'm going to use those 2 emitters as source. So it's going to create this. By default, here the point radius is the size of each of your particles. It's much too strong. I'm going to change the size to maybe, let's try 2. And I'm going to decrease the voxel size, which is the resolution. Let's go to maybe 3. And we have this. You can see we have all those tangles that I was after. Then I'm going to the filter. So the workflow is the same that with the volume builder from Cinema 4D. It's just, it looks different, but it's the same thing. You just use your source, your voxel size, and then here in the filter, I'm going to use here filters to smooth everything. So it's, let's use a median, maybe a Gaussian on top of it. I'm going to actually maybe untick the median. Yeah, so we have just the Gaussian. And it's going to create a nicer flow like that. Okay, so now the Redshift part. Now we have that. If I want to render it, I would like to use the color the variation of color you can see here of the particles, I would like to get them on my mesh. So here on your OpenVDBMesher, you go to the tags, and here you have several tags you can just use. I'm going to use the transferred point color. Okay, it's going to create this one. And now if I click on it, we can see we have some kind of gradient variation of color on our mesh. So it took actually the color of our particles, and then it mapped it to the result. If I go back to the OpenVDBMesher, I can smooth a little bit the color so that they blend in even more. Let's go to 1, maybe 2. Okay, same trick with the transfer velocity. And you'll see why I'm going to do that. Transfer velocity is going to create 3 more tags. And if we take a look at the tags, those are the velocity and the main one. Actually, the main one is here. Okay, now very quickly, because time is running out, if I want to have some material on that, so I'm going to create first a very basic material. And let's use something opaque. I'm not going to do some glass for this one. I'm going to put it there, okay? I'm going to add just a dome light. And I'm going to use in the asset browser, in the media, in the text, we have HDR, and I have loaded some HDR I like this one, for example. So let's go back here. So those are my own HDR. I just added to the database. I'm going to drag and drop here, so it's loaded. Okay. Okay, now if I'm going to render, okay, we have this, which is very interesting, but we don't get the color. So how to get the color? Let's go back to our material. And I'm going to use here Shift-C to have the commander and the vertex attribute, the very same I used last week to draw splines. Well, it's actually going here to be used to just to utilize the color we have here. So this one, this is the tag I'm going to drag and drop here. And then this point color, I'm going to put it here on the diffuse color. So it's updating the geometry, and that's it. And we have the color of our particles on top of it. So because I went a bit too fast, we don't see much difference of hue, but yeah, we can see it here anyway a little bit. You can see a bit of variation here on our mesh. And with just one object, we have 2 colors. And if they blend together, they would take the color of each other. They would meddle and create something else. Do we have some intersection? Yeah, here, you can see here. The 2 colors are going to blend in. So that's very interesting to create some more motion. So to finish off, there is one problem. I have been asked very often about it. The trick to good water simulation is that if you think about, if you take a video of a faucet running water and you just pause the frame, you will see that it's blurred, okay? And actually, if you use a camera in such a way that with the shutter frame high enough that you're going to freeze the water, you will see individual droplet, and it would just look fake if you just play. I would like to show you an example, but forget about that. So anyway, the trick with good water simulation is motion blur, okay? Because water is always running very fast. Here you would expect to have some motion blur. So how to add that? That looks easy because in Redshift, the only thing to do to add motion blur is to tick here the motion blur, okay? And that's it. And then you're going to hit render and it's going to work. But it's not. It's not. You will either get a message error or most of the time it's just not going to render the motion blur. You need to do two things first. You need to enable the motion blur, the deformation blur, then you will get the error, but you need to get that. And you will get a message saying that inconsistent point number or something like that. That's because the geometry of the OpenVDB is changing at every frame, okay? And the computer, Redshift, cannot guess the velocity from that. It's impossible, and actually it's not Redshift's fault. It's just every renderer. I mean, Arnold has the same issue, Cycles on Blender has the same issue. So you need to give him some hint. So for this, we do have the trick. You're just going to add here on your OpenVDBMesher, you're going to add the Redshift tag object, and then you have a motion blur tag tab. And then here you're going to enable the motion vector. And here alone, it's not going to work. You need to input those we have just got together. So this one, velocity Z, Y, X, and that's it. So to make it more obvious, I hope it's going to render because there is 200 frames. I'm not sure. I'll see. I'm just going to increase a lot the scale. And now let's go back here to our Redshift render settings. We have, I'm going to just increase to make it very obvious. We have transfer frame step, frame duration. And the last trick is actually motion blur is not going to be visible in progressive mode. Okay, so I don't see it. It's not even visible in bucket mode. You have to launch render, and where I'm a bit afraid is that because I have 200 frames, it's going to try to calculate everything from zero. We'll see if it works. Anyway, if you want to see your motion blur, you have to make a final render, which is this one. So let's go and let's hope it's going to work. It's going to prepare for some time again because I'm at frame 200. Then it has to calculate everything through here. So I guess we'll have some time for question for those who have stayed.
Yeah, so we have actually got a couple of questions. Let me just have a quick look. So
Yes.
Fabio was wondering, how would you quickly test the motion of these X particles? He's saying, I noticed that the FPS is quite low. I'm curious to understand your workflow for optimal settings before you'd actually then kind of increase your particle count and do your final render.
Well, it's tricky because when you use the fluid PBD modifier, the behavior of the particles are going to change depending on the size and the number of particles. So anyway, it's going to get long, whatever. There's no way other than run simulation and again and again and again and again. And before caching everything and well, no, after caching, but before the render, I always do some animatic, meaning that I'm going to use here the make preview of the viewport to see the actual speed, because here, of course, we can't really tell. And it's taking time. It's always taking time because you have to render, do the viewport render, then you're going to do again the simulation and then tweak it and do it again and then tweak it and so on and so on. So yeah, you have to be patient for that kind of stuff.
Cool. Bernd was wondering, is this possible with C4D's particle system?
Yes, it's. I wanted to do this, but it's really difficult because you have to use the force field, or even you can do it with basic thinking particles. But basic thinking particles, I mean, it's not basic. It's really difficult to master. But yes, you can do it because you will have particles and you can use the volume builder to cache the particles. The only thing that thinking particle cannot do is the fluid PBD, meaning that your particles are not going to behave really like water. But to do some motion design stuff like that, like what I'm doing, actually you can fake it again. It doesn't matter that it's not realistic water as long as it looks cool. But for this example, yeah, X particles is way better and faster and easier.
Cool. Simon was wondering, would it be better or perhaps easier to add motion blur in post using the AOV?
Well, actually, the AOV is not going to work. You're going to use the exact same trick I'm using here to get the AOV working. On the other hand, what I've done most of the time is just use fake motion blur in post-prod. I mean, you're just going to use some optical flow plugin, meaning that it's going to guess the motion from the video, like you would do with the actual video, and it works. It kind of works if your motion is not too complicated. It won't be as accurate as raw motion blur, but that's the way I would do it. But again, yes, the motion blur AOV is not going to work unless you do all the steps I have done. And I'm afraid that's not going to work here. It's still preparing because it's scanning through all those frame. What I should have done is to cache everything with the XP cache. It's too late now, but you'll have to trust me on my word.
I'm sure they will.
That it works. Maybe if I go back to the first frame, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Also, got another Simon here wondering, would you be able to apply 2 different materials to the 2 different sort of colors or textures that you have here? Is there a way of doing that?
Yes, of course. Thanks to the point, the Vertex attribute stuff, we could really, actually you have a red and a blue. So I'm just going to say that red is white and blue is black, and use a material blender to mix 2 different material. So it's very powerful. In this way, I would just use the XP in the display tab of the XP emitter to output some pure color, so that there won't be any gradient.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. That sounds great. We had one final thing. A few people were requesting, if you had the time, not today, kind of maybe later on, would you be able to, or do you have a setup and a C4D file for Fire that you could maybe put on the project files link? A few of the guys were wondering if they could, if so, could they have it and break it down?
I will do that. I will add actually it's very similar from this one. It's a kind of mix of the stuff I did with the cloud and this one, because it's going to be the same dynamic system without the fluid PBD. I'm going to use Explosia FX instead, and then you're going to shade it using the volume material. And it works very well. This way you can have some fire spiral Like, okay, so this one was the test with the motion blur. It's not rendering on the here because it's still preparing. But you can see a render, and actually, yeah, those are with the fire simulation, and we can see here the spiral, the same one. So,
Yeah,
but what's
amazing.
cool is it's exactly the same system minus the fluid PVD. And to make those tendrils here, those wisp, I just use the absorption trick ramp that I showed earlier with the cloud. It's going to give you those wisp, very nice wisp.
Yeah.
And yeah, I will provide this this file.
Oh, amazing, thank you.
Still preparing. At some point, it's going to render. But if that happens to you, you know that it's because you're well inside the timeline. Huh? So it's computing everything from 0 to 219. That's really a pain in the neck because you had to cache everything and so on. This is not a bug. This is just Cinema 4D that has to go through all the frames in background. So I guess it won't. You see, it's working. It's not stuck. I mean, 95% of the processor. Wow.
Yeah, it'd be a definite, probably a good time for lunch. You know, you just
Yeah, exactly.
set it to start, go take a break, get some coffee.
Just for a test, yeah, I will not bore you. It's good. I'm just curious. I'm going to leave it as it is. At some point, it will render. I hope. I'll tell you later.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know. I'm interested now.
Well, yeah, well, that's it.
Cool. Shall I steal the screen back quickly from you? Show my main screen. Cool, let me turn this back on. Thank you so much for that. There's so many amazing comments in the questions. If you have time, have a quick look. People saying just so much information, so much great stuff in like an hour and 20 minutes. They loved it. And as always, thank you for doing those project files as well. It'll be great for people to, you know, catch this up and check those out. And so yeah, what we'll do, we'll drop this on our Maxon Training Team YouTube channel later on today. So for anyone who wants to, you know, catch up on that, or if you came in late, then you can check that out. And we'll make sure that we drop the project files on there later on today as well, or maybe tomorrow, whenever we get those ready, we'll put them on there, which will be great. So yeah, thanks so much for all of your amazing questions as well. We've had so many great ones throughout the whole thing. We've been answering a few in the background, and it's great to see you answering them live, Lionel, and just seeing how you'd break them down, which is just so helpful.
Thank you for your patience, all.
No, thank you so much for these for last week's session and for this session. It's so great seeing some stuff inside xParticles and Redshift as well, because it's not often a thing that we all talk about, and it's a topic that people really want to know. So it's been great to really break some of that stuff down. Cool, right, well, I guess we'll leave it there. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your week, and we will catch you next Monday where we dive into some subsurface scattering in Redshift.
Yes.
Yes, I'm excited and nervous. Cool. Well, have a good one, guys, and lovely to see you, Dustin and Lionel as well. I'll catch you on the next one as well.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Fun time. Till
Bye,
next week.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.